Julie, we all like to think of ourselves as good communicators, especially in comparison to our spouses. But I'm assuming someone like you, who is a professional communicator, can teach us a lot.
That's a huge assumption. I would say that the truth is we're all human beings and fallible, and I am 100% that. I can remember one Christmas, Jay and I had made some pretty big purchases, and so I went to him and said, "Hey, what do you think about just not getting each other anything for Christmas this year? Because we've already made these big purchases. And so uh, it just seems like we don't need to be spending the money and all that." And, I kind of sort of meant that, but I didn't like mean it 100%.
I
So
think I
in
know
my
where this is
mind, I'm
going.
thinking, I'll get him a little something, and
Mhm.
I'm sure he will the same for me. So Christmas Day came, and the end of the story. I pulled out my Christmas gift. He looked at me like, "What are you doing? We agreed not to get each other Christmas presents." I was disappointed. He was frustrated, and the rest is history, shall we say?
I can definitely see how that would be a problem.
Yeah.
Um, what are some of the different types of communications that we should avoid in our marriages?
Well, for sure, that one would be a really good one. The whole unspoken expectation
Right,
thing,
right.
where you have all these expectations in your mind and you don't communicate them to your spouse, that can create all kinds of drama. I can speak to that from firsthand experience. I also think giving your spouse the silent treatment when there's an issue between the two of you, and sometimes that plays out with "what's wrong, nothing, I'm fine," when you're totally, your body language just speaks "I'm not fine" all over the place. I also think multitasking is another one where you're not, I'm just not that into you, quite frankly. I'm kind of sort of listening to you and doing something else, which can lead to lots of misinterpretations, miscommunication for sure. um, I would say interrupting, talking over your spouse, or just finishing their sentences, which,
Mm.
when you've been with somebody for a long time, sometimes that starts to happen and you just don't realize that the other person feels like, "I've just been cut off. You're actually not allowing me to finish where I was headed."
Mm.
Probably a couple of others that I can think of. One would be expecting your spouse to read your mind. I
Mm.
have said that to Jay more than once, and he's like, "No, no, really, I didn't read your mind. Don't even go there." And the last one would be listening with your mindset to respond versus actually listening to hear what your spouse is trying to say to you.
Not really listening to them, just waiting for your turn to
Yes,
talk.
wait. Oh, yes.
Okay.
I just spoke right over you. Sorry about that.
Well, a lot of these hit close to home. I was going to ask if you could go deeper into a couple of these and show us a little bit what they look like in real life and how they impact marriages.
Well, I think just like we were talking about finishing sentences or talking over, on top of, or interrupting, um, I do think that sometimes we don't realize that when we do those things, it's kind of like this.
Hmm.
I know where you're headed, or let's just cut to the chase when somebody might really need to actually, maybe they're an external processor. And so talking it out without being interrupted helps them to figure out, what am I thinking? What do I hope will happen? And so it creates angst and tension in the relationship, really unnecessarily so, if we can just be patient enough to not interrupt and not finish their sentences for them.
Let me ask you to unpack external and internal processor.
Well, I am absolutely an external processor. So I will start talking to Jay about something that happened. Maybe it's between the two of us. And I am thinking out loud as I'm talking it through. And part of that is I don't know what I think until I start talking about it. And then I begin to know exactly what I think. Whereas internal processors, which my husband is absolutely much more of an internal processor, he'll think about it and won't talk very much until he's had the opportunity to think through what he thinks about it. And then he'll tell me, which makes for an interesting dynamic when you have an internal and an external
Right.
processor married to each other.
You need to talk about it and he needs to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, what about the silent treatment? Because I think that happens a lot. Why is that so dangerous?
Well, I think it's dangerous because it can lead to lots of misinterpretation. And I also think that it just leads to this friction and tension in the marriage relationship that creates distance.
Hmm.
And when there's distance, people don't do well with that. We're made for relationship. When I feel like you've got the hand up in front of my face and you don't want to talk with me, part of what I'm thinking about is what's wrong with me.
Right.
I'm thinking about what's wrong with our relationship. And if I if we want to do something different, silence, just going away for 24 hours and then coming back out and acting like nothing ever happened isn't helpful to our relationship.
And it's not helpful to the person giving the silent treatment because they're just stuffing it down and bottling it up.
Yeah.
Uh,
Eventually you're gonna spew.
yeah, it's going to come out. You said something about multitasking that I wanted you to expand on a little bit because I think a lot of people have this erroneous idea that we're really good multitaskers, but that's not what the research says, is it?
Well, no, it is definitely not what the research says. Here's where I think it gets confusing. I can I can cook dinner, load the dishwasher, and be working on cutting something up all at the same time and listening to the news in the background. I can do that. But if you are asking me to do all those things and intently listen to you, actually talk to me about a concern you have or something that happened at work that you want me to just give you my thoughts about, uh, it would be very difficult for me to do all of those things and actually really tune into
Hmm.
what are you saying and then give you reasonably intelligent response.
I got you. Um, so, why would you say it's so important for people to recognize the signs of poor communication?
Well, what I know about couples, having worked with lots of them, what they really want is to have a healthy, strong relationship. And they want to feel like there's open communication, deep communication between the two of them. So if you recognize, oh, I do some of these things, we all do. We
Right.
all do. And I think that that's really an important point. We all do that. But when I recognize, okay, this is not good. I'm not giving you 100% of me at this very moment because I'm distracted with these things going on over here. So give me a minute so then I can really focus on you.
Mm.
When I know that, or even if I am irritated and I am being silent, if I know that's not healthy, I can turn to Jay and say, I really do need to be quiet about this for a minute because it's not going to be good for me to talk right now. I do want to talk to you about this. So give me a couple hours or give me 24 hours and let's talk about it in the morning.
Mm.
I think it's just knowing, oh, these aren't healthy for our relationship. And we actually know how to do differently. And we can do that. There's intentionality involved. I also think there's commitment to the relationship. The
Mm.
bottom line is I really want to have a great relationship with Jay. I don't like tension between the two of us, and I definitely don't like drama. So if I know ways to avoid that, healthy, I'm going to do that.
Okay. Now, how would you recommend somebody get started? Because, like I said at the beginning, I think we all think we're good communicators
Mhm.
until it becomes real clear that we're not.
Mhm.
You've listed several, communication pitfalls. Where would you recommend someone get started, or how would you recommend they get started on the path to better communication?
Well, for one, you could kind of do an assessment of how you think you do with communication in your relationship and areas where you have an opportunity to do some work to get better. If you're brave, you'll actually sit down with your spouse and say, what do you think about our communication? Do you think that there are things that we could do to get better? I can remember early on in our marriage, I would come home from work, I'd be frustrated about something, I would be external processing,
Mhm.
and Jay would say, well, you just need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this. And I would get, like, I could feel my blood pressure going up. And I finally had to say to him, stop trying to fix it. And he was like, oh, I thought that's what you wanted, was my thoughts. And I said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to tell you, hey, I just need you to listen, or I want you to speak into how you think I could fix this. And that was very helpful to
Mm.
both of us. So I think just being open to the opportunity to be better, and knowing that there are pitfalls and that we will all fall into them at one time or another, but get up, get out, and move forward, and know this is what we're striving for. So we're going to make mistakes. I'm going to apologize, but I'm going to move forward because I'm striving to have healthy communication with my husband.
Excellent. Well, in your blog, you list 6 communication pitfalls. I want to thank you, Julie, for sharing about this topic, and would love to invite people to check out your blog that is linked to this, and just pick one
Yeah,
this week.
fun.
Just pick one and work on it this week, and let's try to have better communication this week.
Sounds great.